Ryu-Ge is a pretty weird deck. While it's functional enough on its own, it seems to prefer being played with other archetypes, with its cards generically supporting the types of dinosaurs, sea serpent, and worms. This of course has led to many different versions of Ryu-Ge being tried out, and while none of them are really meta-defining, some are definitely better than others. So today, we'll be looking at some of the different versions of the deck and what makes them tick. Firstly, we need to look at what advantages Ryu-Ge actually brings to the table that makes it worth running. The main draw is the fail spell Ryu-Ge Warzone. When activated, it can take a worm, sea serpent, and dinosaur from your deck to banish one, send one to the graveyard, and add one to your hand, but restricts you to special summoning only those types for the rest of the turn. Already, this is a pretty good effect, but it gets even better. If you have the Pendulum Ritual monster associated Ryu-Ge Misfar face up in your extra deck, you can use Warzone's effect, allowing you to special summon 3 Ryu-Ge monsters of different types, one from your banishment, graveyard, and deck each. Obviously, the second effect is pretty great, giving us 3 bodies to do whatever we want with for basically free. Its first condition is easily fulfilled by the cards that search it, and the second can be met by its own first effect. In addition, since it doesn't summon a monster from our hand, even when we do use the first effect to meet its conditions, we don't need to use all of it, leaving us free to search, dump, or banish any one card of the 3 types that we desire. As for the other Ryu-Ge cards, the monsters themselves aren't too great, but they each have an effect in hand to search for a specific Ryu-Ge realm spell. These continuous spells each support one of the types, having a continuous effect that buffs our Ryu-Ges, as well as giving a quick effect to any level 10 or higher monster of the supported type, as well as any Ryu-Ge Pendulum monsters. While these gates do have decent effects, they're definitely not worth running on their own. Don't be mistaken, the main reason to run Ryu-Ge is Warzone, with the gates being an added bonus. As a result, the best archetypes to mix with Ryu-Ge end up being those that can use Warzone to support and enhance their game plan, and coming up soon, you'll see that some archetypes can do so in interesting ways. Swordsoul Ryu-Ge is the most straightforward of any of these versions, playing fairly similarly to standard Swordsoul. In this version of the deck, Warzone is mostly going to be used to search for our worms, be it our Swordsoul starters like Moya and Longyuan, or even other worms like Archnemesis Protoss. Its second effect can be used to protect our Swordsoul combo by producing an Omni Negate without your normal summon, much like Longyuan already does. This makes Swordsoul Ryu-Ge very capable of forcing out hand traps and other interactions. Being a worm-based deck, Swordsoul also benefits from being able to use the Worm Ryu-Ge realm, Wormwinds. While the quick effect is the worst of the 3 realms, its continuous effect to banish any monster sent to the graveyard on the opponent's turn makes it a decent floodgate that can also trigger our cards like Cheng-Ying. Aside from that, there are other interactions that make this a more cohesive deck. For instance, the amount of banishing Swordsoul tends to do makes it trivial to trigger Genro Ryu-Ge Hagva's special summon effect, and if needed, Misva's ritual summon effect can be triggered by destroying cards with Swordsoul Blackout. All this combined makes for a competent mid-range deck, with the synergy between Swordsoul and Ryu-Ge arguably being the best of any version, even if it is more of the same. Combining Ryu-Ge with Dinomorphia gives us a more control-oriented version of the deck, this time using the dinosaur synergies. In this version of the deck, Ryu-Ge Warzone can be used to search for our normal summon, Dinomorphia Theresia, which can then search for our Dinomorphia traps to get our play started. But if we don't need to, instead of searching, we can choose to banish Giant Rex from our deck, which along with our normal summon, allows us to make Evoza, Doka, or Lagia for monster spell and trap negates that can help ensure our own traps resolve. The secondary effect has all the same uses as before, but is particularly helpful here as a tool that helps Dinomorphia go second, giving the deck a proactive play that they desperately needed. Unfortunately, the Dinosaur Ryu-Ge realm Dino Domain has much less synergy, with Rexstorm already preventing monster effects from activating on the field, making the monster negation of Dino Domain largely redundant. But funnily enough, this version of the deck can still use Wormwinds for its Floodgate effect, which is always useful. Unexpectedly, Dinomorphia Ryu-Ge is a mix of a pretty good amount of synergy, making both decks much better than they would be on their own. Voiceless Voice Ryu-Ge is probably the most unique version of the deck, as unlike the others, it doesn't rely on the type synergies of Ryu-Ge. Instead, it uses the fact that Sosei Ryu-Ge Misfar himself is a ritual monster. This allows Ryu-Ge to make use of the usual ritual support Voiceless Voice already tends to run, and since he also happens to be a light dragon ritual, the Voiceless Voice cards just happen to support it. Unlike the other versions of Ryu-Ge, this version actually aims to summon Misfar himself, which is trivial with cards like Radiance of the Voiceless Voice, which can easily trigger its Ritual Summon effect. We'll also want to be setting up as many Ryu-Ge realms as possible, which means that Warzone will mostly be used to search Ryu-Ges, and in turn their respective realms, giving Misfire their additional effects, which makes it a pretty formidable boss monster. While all of this sounds great, Voiceless Voice Ryu-Ge does have a major downside that the other versions of the deck do not suffer from. As Voiceless Voice cards do not belong to any of the 3 supported types, they suffer the most from the Warzone restriction, restricting you to only summoning Dinosaur, Sea Serpents, and Worms. This means that Warzone will have to be one of the last cards we activate, preventing us from using it to protect our combo or surge cards. Ironically, this version may still be the closest to the intended playstyle of Ryu-Ge, and is pretty decent on its own merits. And that's 3 versions of Ryu-Ge. There's definitely a lot more out there, with archetypes like Tenyi or even the usual Dino Pal being usable, but I think these versions are the best among them. If you have a preferred version, let me know. I'm always interested in seeing what else people have come up with.